My fellow Americans,
You might be wondering, why in the world is there a 30-minute countdown before the show starts? Well, we actually start live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, so this whole 30-minute countdown is a chance for YouTube and Rumble to send out their alerts and notifications, so we encourage you to gather up and hang out with everyone in the chat room. So every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time is when we do this show live. You can join us for the countdown if you like, or just set your clock and reminder that at 4 p.m. Eastern is when we go live. You can also make sure you subscribe and turn on that bell notification, so hopefully you will get a notification.
What do you have to say about dictators of countries like Indonesia, who we sell weapons to, yet they are slaughtering people in East Timor? What do you have to say about Israel, who is slaughtering Palestinians, who impose martial law? What do you have to say about that? Those are our allies. Why do we sell weapons to these countries? Why do we support them? Why do we bomb Iraq when it commits similar problems?
There are various examples of things that are not right in this world, and the United States is trying. I really am surprised that people feel that it is necessary to defend the rights of Saddam Hussein, when what we ought to be thinking about is how to make sure that he does not use weapons of mass destruction.
I'd like to...
Who are shouting, just a moment.
I'm not defending them in the least. What I am saying is that there needs to be consistent application of U.S. foreign policy. We cannot support people who are committing the same violations because they are political allies. That is not acceptable. We cannot violate UN resolutions when it is convenient to us. You're not answering my question, Madam Albright.
You briefed the press, did you not, when you were there?
Well, I had several jobs. One of my jobs was that of analyst. I also was an interrogator and indeed briefed the press when we, the CIA, wanted to circulate disinformation on a particular issue. Disinformation is not necessarily a lie. It may be a half-truth. And we would pick out a journalist. I would go do the briefing and hope that he would put the information in print.
What was your percentage of success?
We were pretty successful in planning information of a rather rarefied nature. For instance, if we wanted to get across to the American public that the North Vietnamese were building up their force structure in South Vietnam, I would go to a journalist and advise him that in the past 6 months, X number of North Vietnamese forces had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail system through southern Laos. Now, there is no way a journalist can check that information. That's data derived from radio intercepts, spy in the sky photography. So either he goes with the information or he doesn't, and ordinarily or usually the journalist would go with it because it looked like some kind of exclusive. Go after these gentlemen. I would be directed to cultivate them, to spend time with them at the Caravel Hotel or the Continental Hotel, to socialize with them, and slowly but surely to try to gain their confidence by dolloping out valid information which was true. And then I would drop into a conversation the data that we wanted to get across which might not be true. One piece of data, for instance, that we managed to plant in the New Yorker magazine had to do with a supposed North Vietnamese effort in 1973 to develop airfields along the border of South Vietnam. The reason we wanted to plant this information was that we were trying to persuade the U.S. Congress that Saigon should continue to get a great deal of aid, and that the North Vietnamese were the chief violators of the ceasefire accord. That was printed in the New Yorker magazine under the byline of Robert Chaplin, as indeed was a great deal of such information which we tried to circulate.
Frank, a two-part question. What were the objectives of or what was the objective of the CIA? What about the moral implications of what you were doing in feeding this information? Did the objective override the moral implications, moral problems?
Well, the objective of the agency in general is to generate intelligence and get it back to Washington, to get at the truth and make sure the policymakers understand it. When you plant disinformation, you are diverging from that objective, and I think probably in retrospect it was very counterproductive. I am, as an ex-CIA agent, opposed to the disinformation activities in which I was involved. I admit that I was involved, and I think it served no useful purpose. Propagandizing the American public or Congress is not the CIA's job. As to the morality of what the CIA was doing or that particular activity, the war was a very relative thing. It was a relativist environment, and morality seldom came into play when you were operating in the field. In my estimation, a CIA man should be amoral. That may sound pretty shocking to somebody, but what if my morality were that of a Nazi or agent, if you will? You wouldn't want me to be your intelligence officer. Keep the morals out of intelligence. Keep the truth in, and stay away from disinformation.
It would have been more appropriate for Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, to address this House according to Article 144, an article which was specifically designed to debate violations of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, which is clearly the case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a Prime Minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
Colleagues, but the answer to war is not more war, it's peace. And peace isn't delivered by the barrel of a gun, it's delivered by diplomacy, by dialogue. You can wish away your continent's history, but we share a continent with Russia. We will sit down with Russia. There will be a negotiated peace, and this organization should be promoting it earlier rather than delaying it and making sure that more Ukrainians die. Your feigning of sympathy rings hollow. It makes me sick, to be honest with you.
we become involved when disinformation poses a threat to the security of our country. It is when there's a connectivity to a threat to our country. It could be a threat, a connectivity to violence. And what this working group does, is precisely what I would think you would want it to do, which is to take a look at the work, the disinformation work that our department has done and ask the following questions. Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have standards?
But here's the problem. We can't even agree. We can't even agree what disinformation is. You can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossiers. You can't agree to that. How are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media?
Senator, I have 2 points, if I may finish. Number one, that what this office, what this working group does, because it's not an office, what this working group does is ensure that there are guardrails, definitions, standards to make sure that the free speech rights, the civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy rights of individuals.
So do you think COVID disinformation threatens our national security?
And number two, if I may, Senator, and number two, is it your proposition that when the cartels spread disinformation with respect to our immigration policies to try to lure vulnerable migrants to our border illegally?
I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine, speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation.
Hey everyone, just as a reminder, our show starts at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, just a few minutes from now, but I should remind you that we have a daily newsletter. It's totally free. Natalie and I work very hard on it every morning over our cup of coffee, putting the stories together that we think are important that the mainstream media is going to ignore. All you need to do is go to our website. It's just redacted.inc. Put in your email address. We won't ever sell your email to anybody. And then you'll receive a welcome email, and all you need to do is verify that email, and 7 a.m. Eastern Time is when we send out our daily newsletter. And it's about 5 or 10 minutes in length that you can read it over your cup of coffee. And like I said, we cover 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day, plus a couple of things you might have missed while you were sleeping. We try to have some fun with it, add a little humor into it. And again, it's a great way to start off your morning. But it's also a great way for us to stay connected with you as well, because we've been banned and blocked on some of these platforms before, where we haven't been allowed to post anything, not even a community post. So the only way for us to stay connected with you is through our newsletter. We were able to send out a newsletter and say, hey everyone, we're blocked for the next week, and let you know what was actually going on with our show. Anyway, go to redacted.inc and sign up for the free newsletter, and it'll be posted first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee.
This is a bit of an aside, but in terms of how you think about problem sets, when I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CI director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire We had entire training courses.
We had a good discussion on ensuring global energy security and adequate oil supplies to support global economic growth, and that will begin shortly. I'm doing all I can to increase the supply for the United States of America, which I expect to happen. The Saudis share that urgency, and based on our discussions today, I expect we'll see further steps in the coming weeks.
Are you worried about
One of the hopeful things that I've discovered is that nearly every war that has started in the past 50 years has been a result of media lies. The media could have stopped it if they had searched deep enough. If they hadn't reprinted government propaganda, they could have stopped it. But what does that mean? Well, that means basically populations don't like wars. And populations have to be fooled into wars. Populations don't willingly and with open eyes go into a war. So if we have a good media environment, then we'll also have a peaceful environment.
Killed a million people in Iraq.
That is a separate...
You killed a million people in Iraq. It's incredible that you have the brass neck to be sitting here now urging another Iraq war.
George,
after
if
what
I was
you've
still
already
in
done.
Parliament, I...
There can be no doubt that Saddam Hussein has biological weapons and the capability to rapidly produce more, many more. And he has the ability to dispense these lethal poisons and diseases in ways that can cause massive death and destruction. If biological weapons seem too terrible to contemplate, chemical weapons are equally chilling. UNMOVIC already laid out much of this, and it is documented for all of us to read in UNSCOM's 1999 report on the subject. If we consider just one category of missing weaponry, 6,500 bombs from the Iran-Iraq war, UNMOVIC says the amount of chemical agent in them would be on the order of 1,000 tons. These quantities of chemical weapons are now unaccounted for. Dr. Blick says, quipped that, quote, mustard gas is not marmalade. You are supposed to know what you did with it. We believe Saddam Hussein knows what he did with it, and he has not come clean to the international community. We have evidence these weapons existed. What we don't have is evidence from Iraq that they have been destroyed or where they are. That is what we are still waiting for.
Okay, inspection worth doing, everybody's agreed it's worth doing, and it gets stopped.
Yes, sir.
At that moment, we're an automatic pilot as far as you're concerned. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I respect that. But now, it seems to me the Secretary of State might have a slightly different problem. Secretary of State might be sitting there and saying, now look over there on that side. Now, I remember so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and the 12 people on this side, they're all the ones that said they didn't want to use force. Now, I'm going to have to go tell the president now that we should, or Secretary Cohen, unleash whatever it takes to get it done. And our military assessment is the same as the majors. The majors' assessment is, privately held but publicly acknowledged later, that airstrikes alone aren't going to do this. Saddam's not going to cave on this. So, now here's the deal. I recommended the president have at it and let the chips fall where they may. A reasonable position for the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State to take. But I respectfully suggest, Major, I respectfully suggest they have a responsibility slightly above your pay grade. Slightly above your pay grade. To decide whether or not to take the nation to war alone. Or to take the nation to war partway. Or to take the nation to war halfway. That's a real tough decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why they get the limos and you don't. I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be flip. Because I think, and that's why I said at the outset, the reason why I'm glad you did what you did, we should come to our milk. We should make a decision. But in terms of whether the Secretary of State has no more to consider than you do as the arms inspector, you didn't get in, didn't get my job done, get me in. Period. You made the deal, right? That's the deal. A deal's a deal. Get me in. Scott Ritter, I'm ready to go. It's not how it works. Now, maybe it should work that way. But wouldn't you acknowledge that if you were President of the United States or the Secretary of State, you'd sit there and say, now, okay, old Scotty boy didn't get in. We said he should get in. We want him to get in. It's important that he does get in. They're not going to let him in, so what are we going to do now? We know that France and Russia aren't going to be with us. We're quite confident China's not. We've already run those traps. They're not there. We're not sure where the United States Senate is, but have at it, boys. Go get them. And by the way, Scott and the boys say air power's not enough. I think it's a legitimate debate, Scott, Major. I think it's a legitimate debate. But I don't think we should be putting it in the context of you have somebody up there at state saying, look, how can we weasel out of this agreement? We want to let this guy out there hanging. We're not this. It's a very practical political decision. Same kind of decision General Powell made. Same kind of decision President Bush made. Every president, every Secretary of State has to do it. Like I said, they get paid more than you. Their job's a hell of a lot more complicated than yours. They may have made the wrong decision, and you brought it to light. We should address it. We should say straight up where we are, and we should do it. And for that, I thank you. But it's above your pay grade.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon, and one of the generals called me in. He said, sir, you got to come in and talk to me a sec. He says, we've made the decision we're going to war with Iraq. I said, we're going to war with Iraq? Why? He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Hey everyone, Clayton here. The show is going to start at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I should remind you that we have a VIP community. It's our Redacted Rebel VIP community. Now, this show is totally free, what you're watching right now, right? You can subscribe here on YouTube and Rumble, totally free. But if you'd like to support independent journalism, we are run by you. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this show. We wouldn't be able to hire the team that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the servers that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the reporters that we have, the team that we have. So you can support us by going to redacted.inc, and on the right side of your screen, you'll see a VIP community button. Just click that, and for the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support us. We put out exclusive content, early interviews that no one else will see, live streams just for our VIP Rebel community. So again, it's totally free to watch this show. But if you do want to support independent journalism, we would really appreciate it. Come on over to redacted.inc, click on that community button, and decide if you want to sign up or not. It's totally up to you. We thank you. And meanwhile, the show will start in just a few moments at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the President. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Welcome, everybody, to Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we seek the truth together and cover the mainstream media stories that they ignore. And we kind of navigate through all of this crazy clown world propaganda to the best of our abilities here on this show. And we don't have all of the answers. We're just seeking the truth together with you. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. I should mention we're almost on YouTube, specifically on YouTube tonight. We're almost at 2.2 million subscribers. Like, when just last checked, we're almost there. So, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Join our team here. It's amazing. So thank you guys so much, and thanks to all of you subscribed over on Rumble as well. But we have a busy show for you on this Thursday. We're going to talk about, wow, Justin Trudeau. What is he doing? Suddenly, he's kind of done an about-face on Israel and basically slamming Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel over their invasion of Gaza. Well, we'll talk about that and what the international community is saying, because we had the big summit, not web summit, but we had the big summit in Saudi Arabia. The Arab nations coming together, speaking in Saudi Arabia, and they laid down what they intend to do about Israel. So we'll look at the international response to what's happening in Gaza today.
Plus, young people are waking up to the fact that America has waged wars in the Middle East that boomerangs terrorism back on our shores. This comes from a letter that was released by The Guardian by Osama Bin Laden and deleted since it's gone viral, with these young people breaking down war narratives. I've never been so proud of the next generation. This story gives me hope.
Yeah, I mean, Gen Z, we kind of slam on Gen Z a lot here. You know, we did
I don't think I do that. Do I do that?
Well, we talked about their response to the potential of the draft. Gen Z overwhelmingly voted for President Biden.
Okay, that was one thing. But
Yeah.
I generally really like young people, so I'm not like that.
No, I like young people as well. I'm not ageist in that. I like old people too. I like middle-aged people as well. And I really like the over 100-year-old people.
It's those zygotes we have a problem.
Yeah, but so anyway, my point is Gen Z, I'm really stunned about this. Gen Z is like, wait a second, they're questioning everything. And good, that's what we try to do here on this show. No one has like no one owns like their quadrant of the truth and, with their biases and can't let other people into it. So I love that Gen Z is like questioning all of this and waking up. So we'll talk about all of that. Plus the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade is gone transgender? Yes, Redacted starts right now.
I just want to say, in case that zygote joke came off as an abortion commentary, it was not. It was only humor.
Okay.
It's not. I do actually like zygotes as well.
I'm just
I know some people are like,
happy
wait,
that the word zygote got worked into the show today. That made me very happy. It wasn't a word that I was planning on hearing today, and now I have.
If mitosis gets brought into the conversation, that's going to be crazy talk. That is a word, isn't it? Or
I don't know.
Or do I have enough coffee? Yeah, mitosis.
Yes, mitosis and meiosis, cell division.
I thought I was remembering my biology classes here. Okay. Hey, welcome into the show. Great to see everybody. Like I said, we're nearing 2.2 million subscribers. I can't believe it. We're honored. We're thrilled that you guys are a part of our community here and join us every night on the show. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. If you do subscribe, your name pops up here on the big Redacted board and will pop up beneath you here on the graphics as well. So we got a lot of news to get to here on your Thursday. Let's dive into it, shall we? Because we want to start with what's happening right now in Middle East and what is going on in Canada. And while I will admit, surprisingly, we didn't see this one coming, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who recently applauded and celebrated a Ukrainian Nazi on the floor of Parliament, Justin Trudeau, who fights to take away freedoms of speech, Justin Trudeau, who pushes state-assisted suicide. Canada now leads the world in state-assisted suicide. Justin Trudeau, who called people who didn't want vaccine mandates white supremacists and like Trump supporters. I think that's what he said. Who pushes transgender ideology in schools? Well, Justin Trudeau slammed Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, telling him to stop killing babies in Gaza. I was like, wait a minute, what kind of alternative reality am I living in where Justin Trudeau is saying stop killing babies in Gaza and tells them to exercise maximum restraint in the war. I can honestly say I did not have this one on my Trudeau bingo card. Maybe you did, but I certainly didn't. But
no, he's not going to break with the U.S. Him doing that.
I know.
And U.S. politicians, I was like,
yeah, it's a strong, like, wow, what a pivot here. Okay. Could this be a sign that Netanyahu is about to be pushed out of Israel? The Israeli Knesset holding impeachment meetings in Israel? Yes, they just did that. And Netanyahu might be out of power sooner rather than later. We'll have more on that piece of the story in a second. But Trudeau issued a statement overnight calling for restraint in Gaza. He said that the killing of women, children, and babies in the besieged Gaza Strip must end. And he said, I urge the government of Israel to exercise maximum restraint. The world is watching. The world is witnessing the killing of women, of children, of babies. This has to stop. Wow. It's like amazing. He just woke up. Too bad he didn't speak out against the genocide in the Donbass over the past 10 years in Ukraine. He was certainly on the side of Ukraine, which is odd. It's a weird, it's this really weird dichotomy between these two.
That some genocides you like and some you don't.
Yeah, like he's like anti-Gaza genocide,
It's
but he's
like a flavor of ice cream.
Yeah, he's like pro-genocide in the Donbass. I don't know. It's like you pick your ethnic killings, I guess. So killing of ethnic Russians is okay in the Donbass, apparently, but when we're looking at Palestinians, it's not. So, they were, of course, attacking their schools in the Donbass, right? That's what Ukraine was doing. Hospitals, playgrounds. For 10 years, ethnic Russians were being slaughtered. And
civilian infrastructure.
Civilian infrastructure, residential areas. No one was saying a word about it. It's being hidden by the international community because it didn't fit the Western narrative of the coup, the government that the West placed in Ukraine, right? It was a Western-backed coup, United States, NATO-backed government inside of Ukraine. So, of course, they're behind the genocide. That's fine. They kill civilians. They're totally happy with that. But this is progress. So here is Trudeau in his own words. Listen.
The human tragedy that is unfolding in Gaza is heart-wrenching, especially the suffering we see in and around the Al-Shifa hospital. I have been clear that the price of justice cannot be the continued suffering of all Palestinian civilians. Even wars have rules. All innocent life is equal in worth, Israeli and Palestinian. I urge the government of Israel to exercise maximum restraint. As the world is watching, on TV, on social media, we're hearing the testimonies of doctors, family members, survivors, kids who've lost their parents. The world is witnessing this, the killing of women and children, of babies. This has to stop.
So he didn't mince any words there.
I wonder what the political calculation is of that.
Well, as I've spoken with David Creighton here on the show, friend of the show up in Ottawa, he said, is he pandering for votes recently, of course, and aligning with separatists, aligning with socialists in Parliament, of course, to try to get the votes he needs, right, to win. So is he trying to curry favor right now? Perhaps. Maybe he's trying to pander here.
This is a cynical thing that we're asking, right? We're not giving him any credit for perhaps actually feeling those things. I admit to that.
Right.
That these are cynical questions because we think he is politically calculating dude.
And he is a member of the World Economic Forum, and he's a young Klaus Schwab protege.
But we can leave space on the fact that it may be sincere. So let's...
Maybe.
Right.
And maybe he's like turning a leaf here. So, but I'm going to say there's no equivocation in those words. He didn't mince words at all.
No, and you see how the American government and the UK government has fired politicians for speaking such.
Silence canceled.
Yes, absolutely. And also is sort of mincing words absolutely with we don't want a ceasefire, we just want a pause, a humanitarian pause.
Yes,
because a ceasefire may piss you off, Israel, so we won't say it, but we would actually like a little bit, like just a beat. Yeah. A day without some killing.
Like a deep breath, and then you can get back to the killing.
Right.
You can get back to leveling buildings. So Israeli Prime Minister and by the way, let me just point out, this is not a justification for, I hate the fact that we have to make this caveat, because you're going to be people in the chat, they're going to be like, so wait a minute, you're in favor of what happened on October 7th? No, come on. Wake up. Please, please, please. I mean, look, no, we've absolutely condemned the barbaric acts of what happened on October 7th and killed innocent people. Right?
So we do not think any innocent people in response need to die.
Exactly.
No, 1-to-1, and the ratio here is not anywhere near that.
So it is, is Trudeau pandering for votes? I don't know. You let us know in the comments below, but he didn't mince words there. Or did he, truly have a change of heart? I don't know. Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was having none of that. Oh, he was like, no, Mr. Trudeau, let's set the record straight. He fired this tweet off in response. Hey, at Justin Trudeau, or I added the period there. No, he added the period. At Justin Trudeau.
You can't edit his tweets.
I can't edit his tweet. I meant I added the emphasis of it. I just added the hey. There was no hey. He just said at Justin Trudeau. It is not Israel that is deliberately targeting civilians, but Hamas that beheaded, burned, and massacred civilians in the worst horrors perpetrated on Jews since the Holocaust. While Israel is doing everything to keep civilians out of harm's way, Hamas is doing everything to keep them in harm's way. Israel provides civilians in Gaza humanitarian corridors and safe zones. Hamas prevents them from leaving at gunpoint. It is Hamas, not Israel, that should be held accountable for committing a double war crime, targeting civilians while hiding behind civilians. The forces of civilization must back Israel in defeating Hamas barbarism. Of course, you would have to be willfully ignorant to believe that, because that's a laughable response. No one with a brain who's been reading, following the reports, the independent journalists, the non-state-run media journalists, let's be clear, not the ones that are actually mouthpieces of the intelligence communities, but real journalists no one believes that for 1 second that what Netanyahu is saying is true. I mean, come on. And again, you have to be willfully ignorant to believe that. Everyone knows civilians are being targeted. It's well documented. And you are doing, quote, everything you can to keep civilians out of harm's way? Really? Again, all evidence to the contrary. And he says that Israel is providing civilian safe zones so they can move freely. Okay. Is that a lie? Because we've seen evidence to the contrary. Individuals being told to move, and when they're on the back of a flatbed truck, they are targeted and destroyed. Innocent civilians who are being forced out of hospitals, and when they're in the streets, they're being shot at by snipers. So when civilians are told to move out and clear out, they are shot and killed. This has been confirmed. IDF snipers have been firing at medical staff, according to the doctors that work there. And these are not Palestinian doctors. These are doctors from all over the world that work in these hospitals. Norway and other parts of Europe, German doctors who've watched literally standing there while a nurse next to them is shot in the head by sniper fire. At the Al-Shifa hospital specifically, but others as well. So if you don't know this is happening, then you are willfully ignorant. You just aren't looking for the information, and you are not reading. You are getting your information from state-run media sources. Wake up. Or you have some sort of internal bias that forces you to not be able to look for the truth.
Well, that for sure is happening to all of us, right?
Yeah.
You sort of pick a side, and then you're like, well, I'm not going to believe that when you see something that conflicts against your bias.
But apparently the Israeli propaganda is working even in New Jersey, with New Jersey housewives who hang out on TikTok all day.
Did you see what the Israeli army did in Gaza? Oh my God. They stood by and secured humanitarian passage for Palestinians to safely evacuate to the south of Gaza. I repeat, here is an Israeli tank protecting Palestinian civilians who are walking peacefully to a secure location in Gaza. Now, previously, this wasn't possible because Hamas was shooting Palestinian civilians who were trying to evacuate to the south of the Strip. But now that Israel's ground operation did this, they're able to secure this passageway for Palestinians fleeing the north without Hamas interference. Now, I think that it's fair to say that this is not a genocide, and it is just more proof that Israel cares more about the Palestinian people than Hamas does. So support Israel. Free Palestine from Hamas.
Yes, Israel cares more about the Palestinian people.
Then why can't they evacuate into Israel?
Right. If that's the case, open up safe passage so they can all pour into Israel instead of telling us that they are human animals.
That they can only go to
Sinai.
Egypt.
Yeah, they can live in tent cities in Sinai. Open up. So if she's absolutely right, then yeah, absolutely. Open up humanitarian corridors and welcome them into Tel Aviv. Like welcome them in and house them, shelter them, take care of the babies that now have their incubators upside down and turned and closed down. The water supply. So absolutely, if that's the case, if Israel truly does feel that way, then yes, do that. She seems like she's really smart. I wonder if that woman is aware of who funded and actually who created Hamas. Sure she is. She seems like a really smart person. I'm sure she's fully aware of the history of Hamas and how Israel helped to spawn Hamas. I bet it would rock her world to learn that Hamas is a tool of Israel and the United States, fully funded and supported by Israel and the United States. They had no weapons at all until the United States provided them and gave support as a countermeasure to Yasser Arafat. Sure, that's maybe an inconvenient truth for her. But Netanyahu is right about one thing, though. Hamas should be held accountable for what they did on October 7th, the barbaric attack on October 7th. He's right about that. Even Justin Trudeau addressed that, saying Hamas needs to release all hostages that it grabbed on October 7th. Yes, do that. Please do that. Release these individuals so they can go back to their families, who, by the way, have been protesting in downtown Tel Aviv, begging for the government to get them, negotiate, bring them back. But back to Netanyahu. I've spoken to Israeli sources who tell me Netanyahu cannot survive this. U.S. media, of course...
Politically, we're talking about politically.
Politically, yes, cannot survive this politically. His days in... his political days are numbered. U.S. media are hiding the fact that Israelis by the thousands are protesting Netanyahu, calling for him to step down. You won't see this footage on U.S. television, of course. These are protests against Netanyahu in Israel, in Tel Aviv. These are happening daily now. So how did Hamas manage to use a bulldozer and cross the border fence, and for one whole hour Israel did nothing? It is the most heavily watched and controlled border in the world. How did Hamas manage to pull this off? Of course, many Israelis feel like they're being used and lied to by Netanyahu. After all, he was the security guy. I will keep you safe. Well, that didn't work. You also won't learn that this week, the Israeli Knesset, if you watch mainstream media, you won't see this. CNN's not covering this. But the Israeli Knesset held impeachment meetings to oust Netanyahu from power. Discussions about how they will mull and push towards impeachment. So let's just read through this. This is from the Cradle. 2/3 of the Israeli public say they want Netanyahu out of office as he's refused to take responsibility for his role in this crisis and the attack. And it goes on here. We'll just scroll down a little bit here on this. So Knesset members discussed on November 13th the potential of ousting Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu once the war between Palestinian resistance factions in Tel Aviv comes to an end. Israel's Channel 13 reports that ministers and members of the Knesset from Netanyahu's own Likud party discussed impeaching the premier, saying that if he remains in the party and an election is held, most party members will give a vote of no confidence. And they said they basically came together and said they will, they're going to form, basically form an opposition party, form an opposition government. And hundreds of thousands of people have taken to the streets before October 7th to express their outrage over Benjamin Netanyahu. I had friends in Israel who were telling me this was unprecedented, what was happening before October 7th. The tens of thousands of people that were protesting Netanyahu, they didn't believe he would survive then. So meanwhile, Saudi Arabia, by the way, and other Muslim countries are at their summit. They had the summit this week, and they called on Israel to immediately stop the attack on civilians in Gaza and put an end to the conflict. They also said the only way forward is for Palestinians to be given their own country, officially recognized as Palestine. That is the official U.S. position, by the way, as well. If you think that's so out of the realm of possibility, that's the U.S. position, a two-state solution. But you wouldn't know it to watch Democrats and Republicans in their Kumbaya ceremony this week shilling for Israel, holding their own press conference saying no to a ceasefire in Gaza, with crowds chanting no to a ceasefire in Gaza. Can you imagine in 2023 in America, instead of calling for a peaceful solution to a bloody conflict where tens of thousands of people are being killed at the hand of U.S. taxpayer dollars for the weapons that are being sent there, while Americans are struggling to pay their mortgages and their rent and their gas bills and their energy bills, but we can send billions of dollars for this. Can you imagine?
We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel.
And look at all the Israeli flags there, saying no to a ceasefire. The U.S. Capitol filled with Israeli flags. You want to talk about where their loyalties are, right? Shilling for a foreign government like that. It's unbelievable to watch. I don't know. It's an unbelievable moment to see. So you have, on the one hand, Justin Trudeau calling for an end to the bloodshed, and in very strict words saying, stop this now, essentially. Women, babies being killed, doctors being shot at, nurses being shot at. Stop it now. And then you have Chuck Schumer with the new Speaker of the House holding up hands, shouting for Israel. It's a really weird optics.
Must be very confusing.
Well, I had said, Oh, sorry. I said yesterday, like they need to change the hashtag, say no to ceasefire, to say yes to killing civilians.
Yeah.
I just would like to see it framed that way. Like
Right.
like I'm pro people are pro more civilian deaths. That's what they're actually advocating for.
Yeah.
It's just
because
more hardship.
Because the argument, of course, is like, well, they're going in there to get the hostages back. No, they're not.
Right.
That's not at all what they're doing. That's not their goal at all. Clearly, if they would have negotiated this, and to stop this as part of like some sort of a 5-day pause, give the hostages back, stop the killing, allow aid and supplies to come in and help people. That's not what's happening at all. So
in that one case where that explosion happened in that refugee thing or whatever, they were like, well, but we got one Hamas person. It's like they are at the mindset that all of these mass casualties that happened at that bombing were worth it because they got one Hamas person.
Yeah.
One Hamas director.
Thank you, Tron.
Director.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your lighting looks like Tron today, doesn't it?
Does it?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's
I got
David the floating head
stuff now.
All right. I was just going to also point out that it's confusing to people who are just used to being so offended by everything Justin Trudeau does. Like, wait a minute. Did you just say something sincere? I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
That's a little bit how I feel.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to admit to that.
Well, anyway, I know. And for us, we slam Justin Trudeau here on the show all the time for the things that he's done.
It's
right?
like a pastime.
So it really is, because the tyranny, the authoritarianism is very, very strong. And
Yeah.
so we will hold him to account. But when he, just to show you we're fair, I mean, he says this, and we're saying, here it is. Take a look at this, world. Like, he's actually said something that we agree with, which is unbelievable. So let us know your thoughts on that.
I mean, it's a low bar, no killing of babies.
Right.
But I'm glad we got something.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have more news to get to. We're going to talk about this letter to America that's gone viral from Osama Bin Laden, and young people are waking up to the fact that, wait a minute, my government kills people? I didn't know that. I don't want to be an unwitting complicit in this. So this is so interesting. We're going to talk about the Macy's parade and how it's gone fully LGBTQ trans. You may watch this next week or you may not. Plus, the World Health Organization enabling criminals in Congo for sexual abuse of women. The document is shocking. And guess what they're going to pay victims? You will not believe this. This segment lit my hair on fire to research. If it doesn't light your hair on fire, I don't know what. But first,
yeah, you must not be hooked up right if this doesn't bother you. We'll get there in a second. But first, last few years have been filled with a lot of uncontrollable, unpredictable events, right? Well, maybe predictable actually with a pandemic, but inflation, wars, political turmoil, and more. This makes safeguarding our loved ones and taking control of our financial future even more crucial. And when it comes to investing, I trust our friends over at Moomoo. It's a Silicon Valley-based online trading platform. It's my favorite app for trading stocks, ETFs, and options. There's no commissions, no account minimums, no hidden fees. And guess what? You can get 16 free stocks right now just for signing up. And all you need to do is open the account. You make your initial deposit. You keep it open for 60 days. You keep all of those stocks. You're not spending any money. And you get a free SoFi stock right now for a limited time. That's right. SoFi, which is jumped on really great news that we had in the economy this week. And all you need to do to get it is go to redacted.inc/Mumu. That's the sign up link, and you can download it on iOS, on Android, on Mac or PC. All of this is completely free and easy to access, giving you access to analyst ratings, financial and operating data, earnings calls, institutional trackers for every publicly traded company. Mumu also offers tons of learning resources. They have a really great sort of like university built into the app. So if you're not familiar with how to trade or how to start investing, you can learn how to do it inside the app. So here's a great tip. You could literally open the account, get 16 free stocks, not spend any money to do that, learn, because they have all the learning tools in there, and take your time. You could like let those stocks grow, learn over the next few months, a year, no pressure. You can study and learn how to invest in the markets and learn to, invest in different commodity stocks and different things like I do with different mineral stocks and oil and gas companies. That's where my passion is. And all you need to do is sign up right now. Go to redacted.inc/Mumu, redacted.inc/Mumu.
Well, young people are waking up to the fact that their government kills people in nonstop foreign wars. And guess what? They hate it.
Wow.
This is a story that really has me feeling optimistic about the future because of this video. These videos we're about to show you that went viral, where young people are like, wait a minute, I'm an unwilling participant in foreign wars. This makes me unsafe. I don't want this. It's something that we've been saying for a long time, and it's wonderful. But meanwhile, the flip side, the awful part of this story, is that the media is protecting the American government's lies about the war on terror. So here's what happened. This letter from Osama Bin Laden from 2002 has been on the Guardian's website for years, over a decade. And when videos reacting to it recently in the context of the war in Palestine on Palestinians went viral, the Guardian deleted it. So first of all, an applause to these young people for seeking out context in this conflict. That's wonderful, but shame on the media for censoring their ability to do this and protecting the military-industrial complex and in using the censorship industrial complex. It's crazy. These are many evils. So at last, what I want to say is what I'm about to show you is absolutely not an endorsement of Osama bin Laden. So before you even try and type that out, I'm going to tell you to get the F out of here with that. He was not a good person who we should take life lessons from. He was an ideologue, trust fund baby with bloodlust, but he showed us very clearly what motivated that bloodlust, which is the U.S. war on Islamic people and Islamic nations, which involved Zionist accomplices. We ignore this at our peril, because the war on terror always brings us more war. And I think what young people are seeing is that they are complicit in voting for warmongers who use our taxes for death. So I just wanted to put that out there. No, okay, let's look at the letter. This is the 2002 letter from Osama bin Laden, translated to the American people. It's translated from Arabic, so we'll just keep that in mind. It had been posted on the Guardian website for over a decade, but since the war in Gaza, young people started reading it to look for context for all of these terror attacks. Now, once the Guardian started to see this go viral, they removed it from their website. Take a look at this.
Here's removed document, as if they thought, well, no one's going to be able to find this now.
Right.
The internet is not it's not ephemeral. We can't find it now.
We sure showed them. Now, why would they do this?
It adds more fuel to the fire.
Right, because they don't want young people thinking like this. Now, I'm going to show you a compilation of these young people, and they are speaking in jargon. Some of it's very like these days. It's very hip. It's very now. Words that I'm not using right now. But I think what I want you to see here is young people talking to each other, looking for complex explanations to their world instead of just headlines and dismissals. So watch.
This morning I read Letter to America, which is Osama bin Laden's letter to America explaining why he attacked Americans. And I am ashamed to say that I not only have never read this letter, but I didn't even know this letter existed. It's wild, and everyone should read it. If you haven't read it yet, read it. However, be forewarned that this has left me very disillusioned, and I feel the same exact way I felt when I was deconstructing Christianity. I feel a little bit just confused, like I have entered into another timeline. What is this? And yeah, so go read it.
So I just read A Letter to America, and I will never look at life the same. I will never look at this country the same. Please read it, and if you have read it, let me know if you are also going through an existential crisis in this very moment, because in the last 20 minutes, my entire viewpoint on the entire life I have believed and I have lived has changed. Please read that entire letter.
I need everyone to stop what they're doing right now and go read. It's literally 2 pages. Go read A Letter to America. And please come back here and just let me know what you think, because I feel like I'm going through like an existential crisis right now, and a lot of people are. So I just need someone else to be feeling this too.
I need you to stop what you're doing and go read A Letter to America. It is literally the craziest thing I've read in a while. And while I can't say that I'm that surprised, I am pretty shocked. So go read it and tell me what you think, because I really also need to talk to other people about this. And actually, before you even read the letter, I did want to mention, in reading the letter, I could only think of this tweet that I saw the other day. Under settler colonialism, any kind of resistance is branded as terrorist because the only acceptable violence is violence by the occupier.
So this is fucking insane. I just read Osama Bin Laden's Letter to America, which I will be going through right here, but it's actually so mind-fucking to me that terrorism has been sold as this idea to the American people, and honestly just so many Western inhabitants within certain nations, that this group of people, this random group of people, just suddenly wakes up one day and just fucking hates you, just wants you dead, wants you gone, and this is all because they believe that they're better than us. Like, that is the root of terrorism. It doesn't make sense. They just hate your fucking nation. But reading this letter, it becomes apparent to me that the actions of 9/11 and those acts committed against the USA and its people were all just the buildup of our government failing other nations.
Now, are those kids saying that Bin Laden was right to blow up the Twin Towers? Clearly not. Also in this letter, Bin Laden rails about gay rights. Also, he says that AIDS is a satanic American invention. Clearly, they're not saying that, right? What they're saying is they're reading what a terrorist actually says and not buying the American government's "they hate our freedoms" BS. They don't hate our freedoms. I think that they'd love to never think about us ever at all. They hate our pursuit of their blood and money and oil. These people are realizing that when their government kills people abroad, at least some of those people will then want bloody revenge on us. In 2002, here's part of the letter. Bin Laden wrote this. He says, "You have starved the Muslims of Iraq, where children die every day. It's a wonder that more than 1.5 million Iraqi children have died as a result of your sanctions, and you did not show concern. Yet when 3,000 of your people died, the entire world rises and has not sat down." He's talking about the 3,000 souls from 9/11. Now, that 1.5 million Iraqi children number, though, in the decade since he wrote that, has grown to over 4.5 million children, people, souls, innocent civilians. Where did I get that? Well, remember, we talked about this in May. This was a report from Brown University that said that the death toll post 9/11 from all of the wars since stands now at 4.5 million people and counting. Jeez. Most of these were indirect deaths, meaning that they came from the post 9/11 wars' destruction of economies, public services, and the environment. Indirect deaths grow in scale over time. Remember this chart? It means that suffering will continue long after the U.S. and Western allies withdraw from those regions. Of those 4.5 million deaths, they say that most of them, in fact, 3.7 million, are from indirect causes such as the spread of disease, health problems, destruction of economies, public services, and the environment. And they just keep going. And then once we're done spreading devastation in those regions, we make it worse with sanctions of mass destruction, which prevent economies from recovering in any meaningful way. That's why we have this horrific chart about, it didn't print well or didn't PDF well, about child malnutrition, children literally wasting. Now, recall when Secretary of State Madeleine Albright was asked about the children that had died in Iraq since our war on terror, she said this.
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Worth it, she said. Now, another reason that the media is censoring this, they're saying that it's anti-Semitic, Osama Bin Laden's letter. Now, it's anti a lot of things. It's anti-homophobic. He talks about...
Well, it's anti-homosexual, not anti-homophobic.
It is homophobic. I'm sorry. It is absolutely anti-Zionist, to be sure. But what we're saying here is it's worth understanding why people attack us and if there's anything we can do to stop it. And absolutely there is. In the anti-Semitic part, he says that Americans allow the Jews to take land from them in Palestine and destroy their mosques and keep them under the Jewish protection of weapons. He warns, though, that civilians should be held accountable for this. This is what we call collective punishment. He says, you may dispute that all of the above does not justify aggression against civilians for crimes they did not commit and offenses which they did not partake. This argument contradicts your continuous repetition that America is the land of freedom and its leaders in this world. Therefore, the American people are the ones who choose their government by way of their own free will, a choice which stems from their government to its policies. Thus, the American people have chosen, consented to, and affirmed their support for the Israeli oppression of the Palestinians, the occupation and usurpation of their land, and its continuous killing, torture, punishment, and expulsion of the Palestinians. The American people have the ability and choice to refuse the policies of their government and change it if they want. Now, this evil, what he's talking about here, evil is collective punishment. It's called collective punishment. That means you punish people for innocent civilians for what their governments do because they chose them, right?
Right.
So we in the West can't have a double standard about collective punishment where we say that anyone who is Palestinian is fair game to be punished because their government, Hamas, did this, right? And also, though, we shouldn't be fair game for what our government does. No, you can't have it both ways.
Right. So when you look at the invasion of Syria, right, the illegal occupation of Syria right now, it's an illegal occupation. And as Kevork Almasi and another Syrian journalists have pointed out, the United States is there illegally. And so by that metric, then, the American people in many ways are complicit. They voted for President Biden. They voted for this Congress.
Right.
Congress just passed a resolution confirming staying in Syria and continuing the invasion.
They rejected a withdrawal of Gaza in Syria. You're right.
Yeah, and pointing out Syria did not attack the U.S.
Right.
Syria has never attacked the U.S.
Yes.
Like,
right.
What in the hell are we doing there?
Right. Why are we attacking Russia, by the way? As our friend Tucker Carlson has pointed out, he's like, I've never known any American to have been killed by Russia. Mm-hmm. So why are we attacking Russia? Why, like, what are we doing? And so will we not expect there to be some sort of reprisal? We're worried about the safety of the American people, and you're literally swatting hornets' nests and going to be surprised when someone gets stung?
Right. And so, again, this double standard that says, well, Palestinians, they're there, they voted for Hamas, then they're guilty too, they have to suffer collective punishment, then we should too, right? You can't have it both. So either you believe in protecting civilians or you don't. And this is the part that I think young people are starting to understand, is that terrorists see this as a way of revenge because we otherwise are not listening. This is also from the letter saying that Allah the Almighty legislated the permission and option to take revenge. Thus, if we are attacked, we have the right to attack back. Whoever has destroyed our villages and towns, then we have the right to destroy theirs. Whatever has stolen our wealth, we have the right to destroy their economy. And he says, Why then did we attack in New York and Washington? Because look at the last line, America does not understand the language of manners and principles. So we are addressing it in a language it understands. Now, so whoever buys this, they hate our freedoms BS is not listening. And then we're not seeing how we are being made to be complicit, right?
I mean, we spit on this very, very early when President Bush was campaigning on this. They hate our freedoms. That's why they attacked us. They hate our freedoms. Like anyone with a brain knew that wasn't the case. They just randomly hate our freedoms, so they're going to attack us? No, that's not at all what was happening. How about all the military bases that you're literally building in their backyard and stealing their oil and their resources?
Right.
Like you're literally driving them into poverty. You're stealing their shit. Get out of their house, and maybe that's why they're upset. Not the justification for attacking and killing Americans, but that's exactly what the reasoning was. Not that they hate our freedoms. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was just going to say, there's more freedoms in what is the other countries is my point. That why aren't they attacking them? Uruguay, that's the one I was going to use. There's more freedom there. They're not attacking Uruguay.
Right.
Yeah, the United States is not the freest country in the world that we purport to be, but there are a lot of countries that are actually freer. So
right.
Yeah, why aren't they under a constant attack?
Yeah. And another line the U.S. uses is, well, we don't negotiate with terrorists. Well, does negotiate mean stop killing them and taking their oil? In which case, maybe we should start negotiating, right?
Well, and we created Hamas.
Right.
So we can't negotiate with an organization that we created and funded. We created Al-Qaeda.
No, but that's what they tell us is we can't negotiate at all, because when the question is, well, why'd they do this to us? What do they want? Is a totally normal question, right? If someone breaks into your house with a gun, you say, what do you want?
Right.
And so we want to know, what is it they want? Why are they hurting us? This is a sincere, legitimate question. And we say, we won't negotiate with them. We're just going to
We won't even listen.
And so they don't want us to ask that question so that maybe we can give them what they want so that we are safer. If someone breaks into your house and they say, we want what's in the safe, you give it to them to save your children, right? That's a pretty rational response. So if they're saying, we want you to stop bombing us, maybe we should give it to them and reject this we don't negotiate with terrorists line so that we don't get terror on our shores the same way we did in the Orlando nightclub bombing, which was spun as some kind of attack on gay rights. It wasn't. Those people did not die because they were gay. They died because their government was attacking other countries abroad. Had nothing to do with being gay. And clearly, this is what young people are saying. Like, let's understand this and stop it. Like this girl, who, again, I'm going to warn you, she uses the F word and a lot of jargon, but I think she's pretty darling because it's just blowing her mind. Watch.
Okay, so if you don't know what the fuck is going on in the world right now, I'm here to explain to you. Y'all, I'm shaking because I don't know what to do. Like, oh my God. Okay, so Osama Bin Laden came out with a letter to America, and this is just him answering the first question. This is just the first question. This is all information that I've gathered from the first question. He asked 2 questions, he answered 1. Hold on. So, he says, because you attack us and continue to attack us, you attacked us in Palestine, it brings us both laughter and tears that you're yet tired of repeating your fabricated lies. Mind you, he's talking to America as a whole, okay? Attacked us on a daily basis. Over 30 million civilians have died. Not army people, regular civilians, your mama, your daddy, your grandma, the kids, dead. You steal our wealth and oil, I don't know this word, but because of your international influence, you sound entitled, America. The theft is indeed the biggest theft ever witnessed by mankind in history of the world. Starve the Muslims of Iraq. Children die every day. More than 1.5 million Iraqi children have died as a result of your sanctions and did not show no concern. Yet, when 3,000 of your people die, the entire world rises and has yet to sit down. He's talking about 9/11. 3,000 people died in 9/11. Yet every year, it's like, oh my God. But yet millions of people are dying and, oh my God. Oh my God. Hold on. He says, you have supported the Jews and their idea that Jerusalem is their eternal capital and agreed to move their embassy there. Listen, y'all, with Americans' protection, the Jews are planning to destroy, I don't know what this is, I'll put it right here. More than half a century of attacks. And did y'all know that the tax dollars are given to Israel to help them kill all the people in Palestine? I don't know what to do with this information. Like, I'm going crazy. Because it's like, what the fuck? Like, I'm not going to lie, I was little as fuck when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's in a bathroom. I love that she was in a bathroom, by the way. And then somebody walks in.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Hey, look. Yeah, forget the jargon and all that. But like the fact that she's reading and trying to understand.
She's like,
I don't
took
know all the
notes
answers.
in her flowered notebook.
Yeah,
You know,
she's like, I'm just learning about this. Wait a second. Is this true? Let me do more research on it. Is this true? Are people dying on a regular basis at the hands of U.S. occupation in different countries in the Middle East and Africa? Like, it's a great question. Good for young people for actually starting to investigate it here. Maybe these young people can join us in this peace movement, because there is a lack of a peace movement in the United States. And it'd be great to see people like that rising up. And instead of voting for people like Joe Biden, because this generation, this Gen Z generation, 68% of them voted for the warmongers that run the United States of America right now. Antony Blinken, President Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, those people that run the country, Gen Z voted for overwhelmingly.
yeah. Oh, I'm going to blow your mind more, girl. Obama, Hillary Clinton, they all perpetuated this same war while they were in power. So it's all of them. I just think it's a wonderful awakening to see young people. They care about someone who is not in their community. They care a lot. They want to understand, and they're willing to accept nuance that is being censored from them under the guise of misinformation. They're trying to take it from you. Don't trust them, and read for yourself. Bravo to this generation. Bravo to this trend.
And that's like, real quick, a conversation that we have all the time. Like, we know this now. What do we do with this information? Because it becomes so overwhelming. And that's like one thing. And we cover like how many things? So we're like on a daily basis, it's like, what do we do with all of this information?
Well, and I think our audience knows this, right? Our audience is smart. They're well read. They understand what the United States has done here. I see it in our chat every night. They're aware of this tyranny of the United States and these other countries stealing resources and minerals and so forth, and gas and oil, and putting up military bases around the world. I see this on a regular basis. So that's great. I see that our audience is responding to this. They already know this, but there's a whole generation that is just waking up and like, how do I process this? You know what? Start reading. Start reading books. Start paying attention to independent media that's not tied to the mainstream.
Right, exactly. And especially wake up to the things that they're censoring from you. Because if The Guardian is taking this off because you're having this reaction, then clearly there's more that's being censored from you and kept from you under the guise of misinformation. But keep going. Pull this thread, young generation of Americans and abroad. Keep going. Bravo.
That's right.
All right, well, we have more news to get to. We're going to tell you about the upcoming Thanksgiving Day parade. That's just next week. We're also going to tell you about how the World Health Organization is protecting criminals, sexual abusers in Congo, and doing nothing for victims. This is a crazy story.
That's right. But first, let's tell you about our store. We've got our Redacted store. If you want to check it out, go to redactedstore.com. We've got some great merch over there. We've got our new lineup for the holidays. If you want to go and get some hoodies and T-shirts and mugs and stickers right now for the holidays, we've got our new Redacted Rebel mugs. Friends don't let friends watch the mainstream media. Non-pacifist peace extremist shirts as well, plus our hoodies. You can check all of that out, and our stickers. Just go to redactedstore.com. We've got our t-shirts, hoodies, and mugs, and we've got all sorts of new merchandise over there, and we'll do that. All right, so let's talk about this story. Forget Snoopy, forget SpongeBob SquarePants. Get ready to see some transgender performances at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Now, if you're tuning in to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade next week, be prepared this year for what one group is calling a non-binary transgender extravaganza. Let me read that again. A non-binary transgender extravaganza. And there's Grogu. Oh, who's that guy? That's I forget the name of that guy. But these are what you're seeing here is footage from years past. That's the Pillsbury Doughboy. That's the Pillsbury Doughboy. Yeah, but so these are floats from years past, but that's all about to change. You're going to see a lot more LGBTQ plus performers this year. That's right. Macy's is reportedly making a big shift this year so that millions of people at home can watch LGBTQ plus XYZ, XY, whatever performers float down Amsterdam and Broadway in New York City with non-binary singers and performers on their Thanksgiving Day floats. And it'll be broadcast on NBC television to millions of homes, all in the spirit of inclusivity and diversity. So Macy's has been laying the groundwork for this for a few years now. Take a look at this. This is the prom's same-sex kiss makes history at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Do you guys remember this from a few years ago? This was back in 2018. Macy's featured a lesbian kiss during the parade from the Broadway performer's prom. Here it is. You can see that here. And do you guys remember this, or am I the only one that remembers this? I remember this being.
I do not. I don't watch that stuff.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, I remember this being quite a bit controversy at the time. They're like, "What? This is going to be in there? Okay." So this was a Broadway show, The Prom, which I've never even heard of before. The Prom, but anyway, so that was a big deal. So that was 2018, and then last year, Macy's announced it was done with its partnership with the Red Kettles of Salvation Army, the Christian organization that rings the bell during Christmas in front of Macy's. Sort of iconic at Macy's. In New York City specifically, but you see them at Walmarts and other places like that, raising money for individuals, the Salvation Army there. So Macy's won't host the Salvation Army last holiday season, and they've continued that. They have a long history, though, Macy's does, of promoting LGBTQ messages, and they sell gender-neutral clothing as well, and they promote that. Non-binary clothing, which I don't know exactly what that is. They feature gay couples in their advertisements, and they give a lot of money to LGBTQ causes like this. Macy extends long-standing partnership with the Trevor Project, deepening its life-affirming work for LGBTQ youth in crisis, including this Trevor Project, which tries to raise awareness around mental illness in young people, trying to prevent suicides. So yes, gender dysphoria is an illness. It's a mental illness. It is classified as a mental illness by the American Psychiatric Association. In fact, both gender dysphoria and schizophrenia share very similar characteristics according to the American Psychiatric Association. They're like cousins of mental illness. My uncle had schizophrenia and he killed himself. And it's no joke. The Trevor Project aims to let LGBTQ plus kids become their, quote, authentic selves. So if that means cutting off your balls and taking mind-altering hormones, then I guess we support you. This is what Macy's says on their website. Macy's says, for more than a decade, we've been focused on advancing access to critical services, advocacy, and inclusivity for the LGBTQ community. Our partnership with the Trevor Project to support youth mental health and valued relationships with organizations like the Human Rights Campaign help empower members of the LGBTQ community to be their authentic selves, not only during Pride, but year-round. So it's really weird then that Macy's is both giving money to stop suicide associated with this mental illness, while at the same time then promoting it on their floats at the Thanksgiving Day Parade. Doesn't really kind of add up there. The two don't line up. So how do we know this, by the way, about the Thanksgiving Day Parade? How do we know what floats are coming down the pike? Well, some savvy-eyed moms got their hands on Macy's float schedule and were appalled at what they were seeing, non-binary singers and dancers during the televised show. I wonder if they'll be clothed. I guess it'll depend on how cold it is in New York. The group is called 1 Million Moms, and they've launched a petition to stop Macy's and NBC from featuring these performers. You might have difficulty going to their website. A number of internet service providers appear to be blocking their site, 1millionmoms.com. I was finally able to get on, but you might get a warning like this, like I did earlier today. This site has been blocked by your administrator. So you might need to use a VPN to get around these restrictions. So when you finally do get on the website, you'll see their petition at the 1 Million Moms. And as of this, when I filmed this or screenshotted this a short time ago, it was at 30,993. Last night, the petition was at 25,000. There's the website. Vice News, which is now a champion of the left, published a big hit piece on 1 Million Moms a few years ago where they said this: Look at these guys complain about everything. Everything the 1 million moms wanted to call the manager about in 2020. And he goes through a litany of things, from Burger King to the WAP song to the list was pretty deep. Here's one. They slammed 1 Million Moms Group for drawing attention to taxpayers-funded Sesame Street, letting Billy Porter wear a tuxedo dress and perform on Sesame Street. So liberal groups do not like the 1 Million Moms Group. They call them a far-right Christian group. But other people do support them. Kristen Wagoner, the president of the Alliance Defending Freedom, was just on Fox this week, and she says it's not just about the images that our kids are seeing, it's the secret agendas. And I think she really hits on this, that's being pushed on our kids. It's not just like it's not about the floats. It's not about that. It's about the secret agenda, encouraging them behind their parents' back to go seek sex change operations, to go and get hormone blockers and puberty blockers and not tell their family about it, or not get parental consent to do it. So listen to what she has to say.
We're all about tolerance and inclusivity, and what that means is that it shouldn't be corporate brands that are waging propaganda on our children. Right now, we're seeing in the entertainment industry, at Disney's hands, as well as even in our school system, we're seeing propaganda being waged that plays out in secret transitions that are being facilitated without parents' knowledge. We're seeing curriculum and books that are being used in classrooms designed to confuse children about who they are and who God created them to be. So I think, again, it's an issue of parents saying, we're here to parent, and this ideology isn't just existing in a theory or a vacuum. It's playing out on the ground, and it's very destructive.
So they support it. Let us know your thoughts on this. Are you okay with these kind of performances at 8 a.m., 8:30 in the morning on NBC on Thanksgiving Day, when your families are gathering around to watch these performances, watch floats of Snoopy coming down, and you're seeing these types of performances? Let us know in the comments below what you think about this.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Clayton.
Okay. No comments.
I'll save my comments on that one.
For off the show.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know. David, boys, anybody else? No?
No,
Okay.
I got nothing.
Not on that one. Okay. Well, we have one more story to get to before we let you go today. We're going to talk about the World Health Organization. Hey, do you want to tell them about the newsletter before we do that?
Okay. I
will do that.
All
I'm
right.
just asking if you like that plan.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to tell you quickly about the newsletter because you can get a lot of the same stories we talk about on this show. Plus, make sure that you read, things for yourself instead of just taking our word for it. This is a great place to show up. If you'd like to read in advance of this show, it comes out every Monday through Thursday. It's free. You find it at redacted.inc. There's no levels of the newsletter. It's totally free. So you can find a lot of the stories we talk about here and more at redacted.inc. Okay, well, the World Health Organization is going to pay $250, 250 big ones, to rape victims that they admit that their doctors have abused during the Ebola outbreak. This is the same organization that wants global powers now. This comes from an Associated Press investigation of the WHO's own internal investigation. So just to clarify, the WHO admits that their doctors sexually abused, raped, and all sorts of exploitation of people in the Congo while they were working on the Ebola outbreak. There's no government investigation. There's no international body investigating because the World Health Organization is sovereign. They make their own rules. So they have investigated themselves and decided what is just punishment and what is just settlement for these women. It has nothing to do with any kind of government crime or any kind of formal punishment. Now, during these years of 2018 and 2020, the WHO admits that their staff sexually abused or exploited at least 104 women and men. And as compensation, they have decided that it's totally fair to pay each of these women $250 each. Not per month, not per year, but flat out. Not only that, first, before they do this, they have to go through a training course to help them start income generating activities in order to get this payment, because they have rules around whether or not they'll compensate people that they're hurt, and this would violate their compensation. So they're presenting this as like, go through a training and get some money because we did you wrong. Okay. I mean, just imagine a rape victim getting pennies like this in the US or anywhere else that is not poor Africans. Come on. Now, let's back up and get some context for this story and actually look at their own investigation because it's horse shit. And I want you to see it for yourself. The WHO received, by its own admissions, at least 287 claims of sexual misconduct during its mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, again, the investigation happened by the WHO, and it was completed in 2021, but we only just got to see it this week. Mostly I'm referring to these victims as women, but the WHO does admit that at least 12 men reported abuse too. So forgive me, I don't want to leave them out at all. But these are mostly stories of women. So what kind of abuse are we talking about here? Well, let's look at this and brace yourself. Here is a story from Nadira saying that in order to get this job, she had to have sex with the person who offered her the job. And when I wanted to complain about my salary not being paid, then she had to have some more sex, and you had to just keep having sex in exchange for something. She says it was very common. I even was offered sex if I wanted to get it. I even offered, but like had to have sex in order to get a basin of water to wash herself in the base camp where they were staying. Like, oh, that's what you want? Look at this next story. I'm just going to summarize. There's Julianne, the youngest, who is 20, right? Says that she was selling phone recharging cords on the side of the road when she was approached by a driver who offered her a ride. Instead, he took her to a hotel where she said she was graped without a G. As a result, she became pregnant, and she had a child, which severely affected her family relationship, she says. Another one, Severin, was 43. A man posing as a WHO employee invited her to meet at this hotel. And told her, well, if you want this job, you'll have to have sex with me. It says that the team was able to establish that the majority of these victims were in a very precarious economic and social situation. Indeed, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Indeed, some of them just didn't have any money. For example, this one woman said that after she became pregnant, for what she believed was sexual exploitation, her parents stopped funding her education. One other story is this one. In April, a woman who went to the WHO office to say this man, Mr. Jean-Paul Ngandu, accused of making her pregnant. What you don't hear here is that there was never an investigation. She made this accusation. It was not followed up upon. And then when finally this investigation happened, the doctor was dismissed and signed a settlement where he offered to buy the girl's land and pay her $100 per month until the baby was born. And again, here is the WHO admitting that, some of these women were so easy to exploit because they had nothing, because they were poor and hungry and had families to support. It says, they were just looking for opportunities and they were extremely vulnerable and they just needed to get a job. And so the sexual exploitation was kind of one of their only options. Like Fantine in Les Miserables, you guys, we have fiction written about how this happens to women. For example, Lima told investigators she had resisted for 2 months this advancement, but finally gave in because she needed money to support her and her 4 children. She said she didn't even dare ask for a condom for fear that he would refuse and then she would be out of a job. The team later admitted in this report that women who were more experienced or had greater economic independence were better able to resist unwanted sexual advances. Duh, right? This is a story among stories like this. Another woman offered a job, and then when she acquiesced, with like, oh, it's tit for tat, literally, she gave in, had the sex, and didn't even get the job. Another woman saying that, they had to submit to sexual abuse to just keep the job. Some women who indicated they were already employed said that they had to continue to be harassed or have all of this sex. Some said they did actually get dismissed if they refused. Now, a summary from all of this was published by the WHO's director, Gaia Gamhawaji. I'm not sure if that's how you say her name. We got publicly this update in October of 2023 on their website. Like, these are our remarks about sexual misconduct. They say that out of the cases filed, only 25% of them were allegations against WHO personnel. And here are their numbers. They say, this many, some are unsubstantiated. We were able to say this, it's kind of like, not all of it was our fault, but some of it. They say some of them were not WHO employees, but they were collaborators, which are like contracts they bring on. And what does this mean to the victims? Like, what are they going to do about it? Well, they say that they have implemented 40% of 50 actions. Like, they have a punch list of what they can do to make sure that this is not going to happen again. Also, guess what? They're hiring a victims and survivor support officer. I wonder how much that person gets paid by the WHO. Do you think that it's more than $250 in total? I'm just curious.
Probably.
It's probably
like an $80,000 a year position. It's probably like a social work position.
At least $250 per day.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, at least. Go ahead, Philip.
That and like who's gonna trust these damn what are they called, like support officers running around when the whole problem was the WHO orchestrating this to begin with?
Right.
Like, what are they gonna trust the officers now?
Well, I mean,
you want your $250? Guess what you have to do for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most people don't realize that the WHO, in its founding documents, exempts itself from criminal charges. So as part of its founding documents, they have exemptions from criminal prosecution. Why would they do that? As Dr. David Martin pointed out, he said, the reason they wrote that into their founding documents is because they knew they were already breaking the law. So they don't have to do this.
Right. And so that 250 number, how did they come up with this? Well, according to an Associated Press investigation, the WHO says that the amount covers typical living expenses for less than 4 months in a country where the WHO documents noted people survive on less than $2.15 per day. So they're thinking that the price of rape is about 4 months living expenses. Okay, what do you think of that? What do you think about that? And they say that this amount, they're saying it's less than a singles day of the Associated Press points out that this amount per victim is less than a single day's expense for any UN official working in the Congolese capital. So any of those doctors were getting paid more than this, but the victims get much less. And why do they have to go through this training course first? It says that the payments appear to try to circumvent the UN's stated policy that it doesn't pay reparations by including the money in what it calls a complete package of support. Many of these women still have received nothing. The WHO said in a confidential document that about a third of the known victims were impossible to locate. The WHO said nearly a dozen women declined its offer. And this $26,000 is about 1% of the $2 million that this Survivor Assistance Fund includes. So this has me fuming. And I want to remind you that this is the organization that wants more power through their pandemic treaty, which we've been talking about ad nauseum, and requires us to pay attention to. Almost half of this report that we're talking about right now, the sexual abuse in the Democratic Republic of Congo, half of this report declares how important it was for the WHO to even be there because Ebola was so serious. Now, remember that the pandemic treaty they're trying to pass would give them the chance to move in and declare that they need to be anywhere, including Ebola. So there'd be more potential pandemics with WHO coming in with immunity and impunity to do this to any vulnerable population, women, men, it doesn't matter. Whoever's poor enough and we can exploit, they have the right. Now, UK MP Andrew Bridgen warned us about this earlier this year when talking about this treaty, talking about how the WHO has diplomatic immunity. Remember this?
The WHO is domiciled in Geneva, and so it has special status. Its employees are exempt from tax, and they and their families all have diplomatic immunity. It is indeed a supranational body, unelected and unaccountable. I think my constituents would fear that.
Unaccountable indeed, right? They don't even have to file taxes to any state. So they can just go around raping. They can do that.
Without criminal prosecution.
Right. Now, one more thing I think worth interesting. Remember a couple days ago when we went over the pandemic treaty, and I said, why is in the pandemic treaty this intention to even out gender imbalance? Remember this, it says that in the pandemic treaty, they're going to address gender disparities. Well, the report on the Ebola sex crimes is partly blamed on the fact that there were just too many men in the field. Here's their report saying, well, you know, this kind of happens when you have these field projects and most of it is men. There's like 75% of the people working there are men, 75% of the leadership, almost 80%. So I guess what they're trying to say is when there are too many men, you get rape, right? That's not the WHO's fault. It's just that that's what men do. If I were a man, which I'm not, I would find that a very sexist argument to counter sexual abuse. It's not our fault. It's just men.
It's just men.
Right.
What can we do about it?
We shouldn't have been expected to do anything if there's this many men. So once again, this is the organization that wants global powers and your government marching forward to give it to them. If you don't want that, it is speak now or forever hold your peace. Let us know what you think of this awful story in the chat below.
Disgusting. And do you want these unelected globalists running the show? I think Andrew Bridgen is right. And also the idea that they're free from criminal prosecution. So no one can do anything about it. Before we go, we do want to mention that we do have a Plus Club. We'd love for all of you to sign up. Again, if you want to support independent journalism, it's totally free to do this, to watch our show on a daily basis, to subscribe on YouTube or Rumble, on Twitter, wherever you're watching us. Let us know where you guys subscribe. But if you want to take the extra step and support independent journalism, support what we do here, please feel free to join our Plus Club. You can go to redacted.inc. And like I said, for the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support what we do here. It helps keep the lights on here, take care of our staff, pay for our servers and all of that. Plus, you can get access to exclusive content, interviews that you'll only get in our Plus Club. All you need to do is go to redacted.inc and sign up for that. So,
all right, that's going to do it for us at Redacted for the week. We'll have content for you all weekend, so please stay tuned to the channel. Like it, share it, comment. We love hearing your comments. Thank you so much. Remember, Redacted is live Monday through Thursday. Next week, though, we are taking off for the holiday 2 days, so we will see you on Monday. Join us here. We'll tell you the schedule as it unfolds. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Bye.